It's time for Bourbon with Friends, the bourbon podcast that never takes itself too seriously. Pull up a chair, grab a glass, and remember, a bourbon with friends can change the world. Here we go.
Hey everybody, welcome to Bourbon with Friends. Myself and Adrian are here to talk about whiskeys from around the world and how a bourbon or whiskey with friends can change the world. How are you doing? How's your time off been from social media?
It's been I've actually really loved it. Today is day 9. It's been very, I don't know. I probably enjoyed it a little too much, but it's been good. It's been good. So how are you? This is like your first recording back.
Yeah, it's first recording back with you, so I'm excited for that. And it's been an interesting recovery process, that's for sure. It's slow,
it's coming along.
Very slow and steady. Yeah, slowly getting movement back. Slowly can move my arm, but not right now. I'm just gonna keep it on the armrest.
So have you been doing any reading?
I have. It's been kind of interesting. I have 3 or 4 books going all at once right now through recovery. One I was reading out with you. Another one was Call Sign Chaos by General Mattis. And another one, it's been a really interesting read. What is that called? Oh, yeah, Mother of Bourbon by this wonderful man. My gosh, who was it again? You're gonna have to say it because knowing me, I'm gonna mess up.
His name is Kaveh Zamanian.
All right.
Please tell me I said that right.
That
was actually pretty good.
All right, perfect.
Yeah.
Well, welcome on. Thank you for coming on.
Yes, I'm personally very excited about this. So can you tell us a little bit, or tell our audience, we all, of course, know who you are. Can you tell our audience a little bit about yourself and how you came from being a clinical psychologist to what it is that you do now?
Sure. First of all, thank you guys for having me. It's a pleasure to be with you. And so, I cut my teeth in the hospitality business, really just fell with fine wine and fine spirits. And my wife, who is a Kentucky gal, we met about 22, 23 years ago and started coming down here, eventually moved to Louisville. I got the bourbon bug and decided to jump down the rabbit hole with both feet and get in the whiskey business, learn how to make whiskey. And, it started with a 5-gallon still and then moved up to a giant 24-inch column still. And the rest is history. But it's been an amazing ride. And it's, in some ways we're just getting started. And actually Mary Dowling is really a kind of a new chapter, if you would, in what we've been doing at the distillery. And I'm so excited to be here and talk to you guys about it.
Oh, 100%. I mean, everything that you're doing so far, from rabbit hole to now this amazing book. Now, I am going to preface this. I've only gotten to chapter 3, but half of chapter 3, because I've been on medications and in and out of surgeries constantly. But from what I've had so far, The Mother of Bourbon, this book right here, if you folks have not read it, get it. This is absolutely amazing. And it's a great, great story. I am going to finish it this weekend, no matter what happens. So, yeah. So let's get into it. How did you uncover the story of Mary Dowling?
Initially it was just basically really a footnote. I was reading through Chet Zoller's book, which God bless him, he passed away a couple of years ago. He cataloged all the distilleries in Kentucky, and he had essentially a reference to Waterfill and Fraser and the Dowling family. And Mary Dowling was mentioned in there just by name as the partner of John Dowling. And that was kind of what piqued my curiosity. And after that, started looking into different places, found Chuck Chowdhury's book that also made a reference to the Dowling distillery, if you would, but really no reference to Mary. And then came across Fred's book, and Fred Minnick had mentioned Mary, but again in a paragraph. It's just very short, brief story about her. And it just piqued my curiosity. I was really interested in finding out more, and I did. And the more I discovered, I realized actually what's out there is not accurate, and wanted to see if I can get an opportunity to get it going, which ultimately came my way about 4 or 5 years ago, when a gentleman who owned the IP for Waterfill and Fraser and Dowling Brothers came to our distillery. I had commissioned a painting honoring a bunch of forgotten people in our industry, and Mary's name is on there. So this gentleman, his name is Alan Bartel. Alan approached me and said that he was trying to give it a go, but without a whole lot of success. And essentially, I asked him if he's interested in selling the IP for Waterfill and Dowling Brothers, which he did. And shortly after that, I figured that, Mary really deserves to have the marquee name, if you would, on the brand. And we decided to launch a brand under her name, and then started even doing more research and preparation for this book.
Well, that's amazing. I mean, based off of everything that I've read so far, it seems like you have gone more in depth than most people have on their college thesis. So, and I'm speaking that from experience.
Yeah, that's one of the benefits of having a doctoral degree in psychology. It just doesn't go away. The research practice came in handy in digging up Mary's story and finding out more and more about her. And I tell you, just the more I discovered with my partner and collaborator Eric Goodman, the more intriguing it got, and the more fascinating she became as a character to us. Talking to her family members, also the Beam family, as well as tons of information that came through various court documents and newspaper clippings and things of that nature.
Again,
so I can say I've gotten about halfway through the book, and what I enjoy about it as a woman is it's very relatable in some ways for me. So I like how she comes across in the book as she just seems like a very tough, badass kind of gal, which I love. She's a widow. I can relate to that. So I'm only about halfway through right now, but I've really loved it so far. So are there parts of it that you would like to share that are more inspiring, or do you have a part in it that you feel a personal connection to, possibly?
Yeah, I think the entire arc of her life is just fascinating to me. I think that the fact that she's the daughter of Irish immigrants, coming at a time when you have the Know Nothing Party going on, there's a lot of anti-Irish sentiment. Essentially, immigrants and children of immigrants really is personally close to my heart, because I was born in Iran and I immigrated when I was a kid. So the idea of pursuing that American dream is really part of, I think, Mary's story, and certainly for me personally, is close to home. But I think, the other piece of it that's fascinating is that this is really also a love story between Mary and her husband, John, because John was an Irish immigrant. And at a time when women had no rights to property, vote, or anything else, John not only fell in love with her, but also made her a full partner, recognizing all her talent and skill as a businesswoman. And I think that's really a remarkable part of the story that gave her the opportunity to have the platform to stretch her wings and really accomplish all the things that she did. And certainly a big challenge after John passed away prematurely, which really, in some ways she was just getting started at that point. And the story gets even more exciting and more intriguing after John passes away, which that's a whole nother set of chapters that I think ties to why we considered her to be the mother of bourbon in the first place.
Did we all freeze, or are we just all not talking at once?
No, I'm just kind of soaking it in. I'm trying to yeah.
Please.
Yeah, I was
ahead.
just saying that, the other piece of the story, that after John passes away, the fact that, essentially a lot of her competitors are trying to take her out, buy her pennies on a dollar, and all kinds of crazy things happen. And the fact that she had the fortitude and the tenacity to fight back, including actually rebuilding her distillery in Cooperage that was burnt down. It was speculated, she believed that her competitors actually tried to push her out, but she rebuilt the distillery, the cooperage, and got the business going. And by the time Prohibition hit, she was one of the most successful distillers in the state of Kentucky, which is absolutely remarkable.
I've actually kind of gotten to the part of the story where they talk about Groms and Ulrich, I think is how I don't know if that's how it's pronounced, but I've enjoyed that part being kind of intertwined with the story as well. So I don't want to give too much away, but that I'm enjoying that part of it. So I too cannot wait to finish the book. I wish I would have had more time this weekend to read, and I definitely would have finished it. But you decided to work with Eric Goodman. Can you talk a little bit about him and just how you guys came to work on this project together?
Yeah, when I started thinking about the book project, I wanted to make sure that I bring a writer in that really has the chops, because I'm an academic writer. I've never written a novel or anything of this sort before, or a historical fiction. So Eric's been a phenomenal collaborator with me. He's written several books, and he was one of a handful of people that reached out, and ultimately we just struck a real good dynamic chemistry together, and started the work. And what was really cool about Eric also is the fact that he's also a great researcher. So together we did the research and collaboration. He wrote the basic structure of the book, and I feel that my contribution was primarily on some of the dialogue, because we got all the cast of characters that are essentially all real. It's the decision to make it a historical fiction was to see if we can imagine what the conversations were in these moments where Mary's interacting with different people like Heinrich from Groms and Ulrich and other characters. And that's where I feel like, my contribution was to think about what the dialogue and the narrative was in those moments where there's key elements and, scenes happening. And in that sense, it was a real lovely collaboration with Eric.
I love that part of the book. Let me just say, I like that aspect. I love that part of it. I love reading the story from her perspective and like what her conversations were like. I really enjoy that. I think that's it. I think Brian's got the.
And I tell you, we had the privilege of and the opportunity of finding family members. So her great-great-granddaughter, her great-great grandson and great-grandson, were able to chime in and offer all kinds of stories and artifacts. In fact, there's several gifts, but one of the gifts was that Heinrich gave her that they still have in the family. So it's just phenomenal to be able to have that and see it. A lot of great pictures. And then there's a gentleman named Bruce Phillips Beam from the Beam family who also gave us access to really the only surviving pictures of her distillery in Juarez, Mexico. So it was phenomenal to have access to that too. Yeah, that's right. That's right.
There are some phenomenal photos in this book. There are some really great photos in here. I've enjoyed the photos very much. It's cool to see her youngest son, and just to see a picture of her son Will, and knowing what parts of the story they're playing in,
So I have a little offside question with this. Did your experience as a distiller have any impact on the way you wrote this book at all?
A little bit. I think we in some ways thought about what it was like for her to build a distillery, in her case, rebuild a distillery. I think the business aspect of it, managing distributors, working through different parts of essentially the sales part of the business. So there were certain elements of that I certainly, I felt like my experience was helpful to that. But I think actually the more important kind of background for me was my psychology background, because I think that background was really helpful to think about the relationships between different cast of characters and how they navigated and sorted out things. So, for example, Mary had some turbulence with her oldest daughter around certain kind of cultural, social issues that were going on at the time, especially with the rise of the Klan, or the second rise of the Klan, which was really fascinating. And for me, as a psychologist, imagining a mother and daughter relationship, and then subsequently relationship with her other kids, I think that experience really helped, I feel like, shed a little light or be able to amplify and bring to life those experiences a little bit more clearly and perhaps a little bit more interestingly.
So I think our internet is like, but anyway, I was just trying to remember what I was going to say. Oh, we like to do a fun question. So, and it's kind of off the beaten path a little bit, but if the Mother of Bourbon were turned into a Hollywood movie, who would you cast as Mary Dowling? And would you want a cameo as a crafty distiller from Juarez?
Yeah, I might play one of the Mexican distillers role for myself. But in terms of casting for Mary, I tell you, I think Reese Witherspoon comes to mind potentially.
Oh, wow, she would be great.
Jennifer Lawrence could
okay.
She's from Kentucky as well. I mean, there's that Kentucky connection.
Okay.
Those are think just off the top of my head, but particularly, I mean, I like the idea of Reese Witherspoon. She's played the Southern role, and she's from the South as well, so it's a little bit an interesting kind of connection that side. Of course, Jennifer's from Kentucky, so that would be cool too.
That would be. I like Jennifer Lawrence. I'm not a huge movie buff, but I do. I would. A movie about Mary probably would be a pretty spicy one, I have a feeling.
It's funny you say that, because that's one of my hopes. I really hope that the book actually gets out and people are able to share her story. So hopefully somebody in Hollywood or Netflix or Apple picks up the news.
Yeah, that would be great, wouldn't it?
Yeah, it would be.
Yeah. So what ways do you think that the industry has either grown or changed, or maybe even stayed the same, or we could look at it as what kind of impact do you think she's had maybe in the long term, if any? I'm sure she had to have had some lasting impact.
Well, I think probably the most important impact is the fact that the distillery in Juarez was still producing bourbon in 1964 when Congress was trying to declare bourbon an American spirit. So it was her descendants, basically her granddaughter and great-granddaughter, that had to acquiesce and agree no longer to produce bourbon in Juarez in order for bourbon to be declared an American spirit. So I think that's probably an important connection. But I think there's certain things that have changed for the positive, and that is that I feel that we have a lot more women in the industry, which is an incredibly positive, I think, development. I think the things that have stayed the same, it still is a pretty challenging and tough business. I think people lose sight. If you're not in the industry, they lose sight of how challenging it is to not only make it, run a distillery, but also then market and commercialize your products. I mean, it's so much work, and at every turn, you're facing some challenge of different sort. And for us, even something as basic as dealing with the 3-tier system is a challenge, right? So, there's definitely those positives of more women, but I think in some ways the challenges of running a business is still there.
I want to speak, but my internet keeps dropping. So you're just going to let Adrienne continue on with it. She's doing great.
Are you kidding? Oh, my goodness.
Here, I'll
You
ask it before my
guys.
internet drops. Do you have any current or future projects that you have coming out
Yeah,
for Mary
so
Dowling or Rabbit Hole?
yeah, so Rabbit Hole is basically right now, the kind of place where we stretch our wings and play around with different types of whiskey expressions. So Rabbit Hole is doing a lot of great things. We're doing a lot of distillery releases that are fun, a lot of different wood finishes, and we have our 5-grain double chocolate malt, and we're working on a series of American single malt releases coming up, which I'm super excited about. Mary, we've got the core 3 lineups: the weeded double oak, and the tequila finish. And later this year, we're looking to release our first single barrel and have the single barrel program open for Mary. So I'm excited about that. And then last but not least, and maybe some of the big serious bourbon whiskey guys are going to balk at this, but we did release a s'mores flavored whiskey about a year ago called Mash and Mallow. And, that's just a little fun project that I'm really excited about. And it's not for the whiskey snobs, but the base liquid is fantastic and the taste is awesome. So that's another one we've been working on.
Fantastic. I remember trying that when it first came out, and I had a blast with it. So I think I still have a little bit left in a bottle somewhere in this house. I have no idea where anymore because I've lost track, but it's somewhere. I'm going to find it soon now.
I have had the is it called the Derringer of for the sherry cask finish Rabbit Hole? I have tried that one. That was a marvelous pour that I had. I was checking out the Mary Dowling website and the different expressions that are there. I was particularly eyeing the tequila finish high rye bourbon. Not a big wheat person, so when it says high rye, I kind of go that way.
Mm-hmm.
But before we finish up, do you where can folks get the book? Is it on Amazon, just regular, or?
Yeah, it's on Amazon. It's on Barnes and Noble's website. All the kind of certainly big boxes should have it, and if they don't, they certainly can order for you. And a lot of great independent bookstores. I think if you go to your local independent bookstore, which I would highly recommend to support your local bookstore. I'm sure if they don't have it, they can certainly order it for you as well.
Yeah, and I can speak to the integrity of the book. It's a very well-made book. It's a sewn book. It's a very nice book. Just to say,
Adrian, that's very sweet.
Yeah.
You guys are both amazing.
Yes. So we got one question that we love to ask, and it's, what's your favorite whiskey memory? It could be from any time in your life, just spirit or whiskey memory that you would like to share with us.
Well, I'll tell you, this is a story that goes to my early days of Rabbit Hole. So I was in those early days trying to raise money to get going, and there's a gentleman. His name is John Reisert. He also unfortunately passed away a couple of years ago. We became dear friends, and I was pitching to John essentially the Rabbit Hole project. And we became friendly, and he said, "Hey, you want to see my bourbon collection?" And I said, "Sure." So he takes me down to the basement of his house and this room, and opens the door. And I kid you not, there were unopened cases of bourbon, Old Fitzgerald from Stetzel Weller from 1958 to 1964. Cases and cases and cases with great bottles of Dusties and pints of this and pints of that. And I asked him what's going on. He said, "Well, the family's been in the insurance business, so every year they gave a bottle of bourbon to their customers, and all the leftovers just got pushed over to the basement." And I looked at him and I said, "John, do you have any idea what you have here?" And he said, "Oh, I don't know. I just gave a bottle of that." And he would point it out to one of the 12-year-old Fitzgeralds. He's like, "Yeah, I just get a bottle of that to my plumber." I said, "Jesus freaking Christ, you just gave the guy like a $3,000, $4,000 bottle of bourbon." And I mean, he had no idea. He was just going crazy. And then, anyway, we became great friends. And he told me, he's like, "Hey, I'd love to help if you can help me, figure this stuff out." So, finding that to me was just it's a very it's an incredible memory. I was actually able to buy a couple of those cases from him and helped him sell a few on the open market, which it was a fun deal. And he just passed away a couple of years ago, and I just remember him every time I see the bottle of Old Fitz. I think of him. So and when I drink a dram, I give a little nod and a toast to him. So that was a great experience.
Wow.
Oh, I love that. That's why we ask this question, Kaveh. That's why we ask. I absolutely adore stories like that. Thank you very much for sharing.
Of course, my pleasure. Thank you for asking.
All right, everybody. Thank you so much for joining Bourbon with Friends. And no matter where you're at around the world, remember, a bourbon or whiskey with friends can change the world. Cheers, y'all.
Cheers, guys. Cheers.
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 All right, guys, I want to thank our sponsor, 10th Mountain Whiskey. You can find them on all social media platforms, as well as 10thwhiskey.com. You can use the code BWF15 for a 15% discount. That's pretty cool. Get some money off. Buy your friends something. Buy your family something. If your friends like whiskey, if your family likes whiskey, you can buy them that. But if they don't, you can buy them a hat. We'd love for you to go there and check them out and buy their products. You can also find them in 42 different states through online distribution, as well as 30 states across the country through regular retail distribution, guys. That's pretty cool. And it's growing because, well, no, the distribution is growing. We're not getting more states. So basically, if you do have any questions, you can reach out to 10thwhiskey.com. They'll be happy to answer anything that you may have. And of course, we thank 10th Mountain Whiskey for being our sponsor on the podcast.
That's it for this episode of Bourbon with Friends. Be sure to subscribe so you don't miss a single episode. While you're at it, leave us a review to make it easier for others to find the show. You can also check us out on Instagram at BWF Podcast. Thanks for listening.